Dr. Nurse Podcast fam, welcome to another episode of the Dr. Nurse Podcast. And I am so happy to have on the show today, Kiiyonna. Did I say it right?
Yes, you
Kiiyonna
did.
Jones. Girl, I practiced too. I was at home. I was practicing it. So welcome to the podcast, guys. You heard a little bit about who she is prior to the podcast. She's a full-time entrepreneur. She went live in March of 2021 with her business called Luxe Beauty and Wellness Boutique, as well as she's co-host of a podcast called Nurse Boss Shift Podcast. And she also has a coaching business called Luxe Beauty Academy, where she teaches people how to do how she do. And so we absolutely have had a blast while talking. And I've just been so impressed, guys. She is and she's a nurse practitioner, and she's PhD, and she's just all the things. This girl is bringing it. So I am so happy to dive into your journey and for you to just drop nuggets all along this conversation. Welcome.
That's the plan. Value, value, value. Jam-packed.
Come on. Come on. So I am so excited to talk to you. As again, like I said, I was diving into what you've been doing and how you started your own business and all these different things. I'm like, this is going to be so incredible and inspiring. So first, take us through kind of how you see yourself, what your day-to-day looks like. I'd like to just start there.
So first of all, just to correct one thing, I started business in 2017. I started out as a permanent makeup boutique. Luxe Beauty and Wellness Boutique was just exclusively permanent makeup, teeth whitening, and V-steaming, believe it or not. That's when I started.
Oh, okay.
Full-time as an entrepreneur until so I had been teaching for a long time. So as a faculty, I was still adjunct. So I didn't stop being adjunct until July of 2021, but I hadn't done anything bedside since February of 2021 when I stopped doing travel. I did a travel assignment. So just to give a little context, I consider myself the nurse disruptor. I am the disruptor, y'all. I talk a lot of trash. I use my degrees to connect with my audience. And then when I need to leverage them to connect with the other people, I can do that as well. Yes. But I am definitely the nurse disruptor. I use my life story, and I also use my educational background to evoke change and to evoke thought into our profession and what we are capable and able to do. That's my thing.
Yeah.
That's everything, even though I am in aesthetics and beauty and all that. But for me, it's bigger than that. It really is about impact and value and being the voice, being the person that people need to see to say, wow, if she did it, I can do it.
Yeah. Yeah. So tell me a little bit about what your current business that you are operating right now offers. So the aesthetic part, kind of what are services that your business offers?
Yes. So my boutique which is a med spa called Luxe Beauty and Wellness Boutique. And I offer aesthetic treatments, Botox, fillers, PDO threading, sclerotherapy. I still do offer non-medical treatments like teeth whitening, V-steaming, and permanent makeup. So that's where I started. So those are pretty much the treatments that I offer. Going into 2023, I'll be doing wellness. I do IV hydration too. I'll be doing a lot of like pellet therapy for women who are over the age of 40, which I am. So it's a personal experience for me. So I'll be branching more into the wellness come 2023. My business from the service side, as well as the coaching side, is really everything that I am. And it's what I offer. So like, as I'm growing and becoming, having these different challenges that come with aging, I'm offering it to my clients, weight loss, things like that. So the same is true for my service-based business as well as my coaching business. It's just everything I am. I don't do anything that I'm not willing to do myself, and I don't offer anything in my business that I'm not willing to do myself.
Interesting. So, okay, so do you operate and run the business by yourself, or do you have nurse practitioners up underneath you? Do you have RNs underneath you?
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about your business
right
structure.
I'm the only, medically, it's just my medical director and myself. So I'm the only nurse practitioner there, licensed nurse. And then I have my body contouring specialist, my guest relations. And so it's just medically. Everything else anyone else can do, but I do all the medical stuff. It was important for me to make sure that I know, especially from the medical, it's okay with like teeth whitening and other ones that are not so risky, but anytime it has to do with like a medical treatment or service, you really want to make sure you understand it, and you don't just hire anyone if you, especially us as nurses, because our licenses are on the line. It's different if it's someone who is not a healthcare professional. Let's say they're in business and then they just want to own a practice. They don't have no license to lose. Like, we have to be mindful of that because we do have a license to lose, potentially lose. So for me, it was very important that I really have been able to kind of dive deep in my treatments and really understand them, safety, and that's also important because I coach nurses to do the same thing. So.
Yeah. And what's your day-to-day look like? Are you working 40-hour weeks? Like, again, you've got so much going on. How are you kind of balancing and managing everything you've got?
Heck no, I do not. Them days is over with. Okay. I spend time with my family. No, I take clients twice a week in my space, in my spa. Other times, like say for example, Sundays and Mondays, peer space, people come and rent out the space to do their photo shoots. You got to get creative. Like, I learned that after COVID. Okay. I was like, I'm never going to get caught with my pants down again. Definitely mobile streams of revenue and way to get money, which does not just require me. So about 2 days a week. For example, right now, at the time of this recording, it's November. I'm done until next year. Like, my clients who are getting on my calendar are in January and February. I'm not taking any more clients. I take December off. So I don't work 40 hours a week. Never will I do that again, unless it's just something happening during that moment and it's seasonal. Sure. But to just be like committed to 40 hours. No, I do read a lot and I study a lot, but it's not work for me. So, but as far as like committing to 40 hours, even at my own med spa, I will not do that again in my life.
Interesting. So you may not want to answer this, but I think you told me I'm completely an open book, Sandra, just go. But I want to know, is your salary at whatever hours you're working right now, is that something that's been able to sustain your lifestyle? Because that's the thing I'm like, oh my gosh, I have to work this in order to make this money, right? That's what you get trained in the hospital. The hospital trains you. You want that 125? You want that 150? You better put your 40 hours in. So is that something that you're saying, or are you saying, no, I make that and I don't work that?
So in my aesthetic practice alone, working 2 days a week, I far surpass my salary as an employee. And that's only my 2 days a week. That doesn't include my coaching. When you add that, it's a lot. Because here, okay, let me just give you some perspective. Because like I said, I'm an open book and anybody I can help, I want to. So and this is something I actually talk about in my webinar, so people can watch it too. But I give the business model for someone who is a solopreneur, who is a nurse or a nurse practitioner, who has just a room that they're renting, a medical office room, who takes 2 clients a week. You can bring in $10,000 a week, only 2 clients. Okay. I'm sorry. 2 clients a day for 4 clients. So it's 4 clients. You could bring in 10,000 a week. And honestly, it's not even any type of crazy treatment. It's just like Botox and basic fillers. You can bring in 163K easy. Now, I'm in California, in LA. That's one thing. You got to consider the market, but you can do that because now we're not getting paid for just our time. We're getting paid for our skill. Okay. And you exchange skill or value for money, it shifts. And so in my boot camp, that's what I talk to my nurses about. It's like, no, you have to think differently, because now it's not a per hour. Like, you can inject someone, Botox and filler. That'll take you an hour of your life. So should you get paid for an hour? No, because you're providing a highly skilled treatment. You should be paid per the treatment, per the value, right? So that passed my salary. The coaching does really, really well as well. So.
Wow. So you've got people signing up. Tell me how to do what you're doing, Dr. Jones. I mean, that's pretty much what you've got going on. That is fantastic. Yeah. So I want to kind of take me back to the start of how you started your business, because I'm getting a lot of nurses that are like, okay, I want to do something for myself. I want to get started small. how did you kind of walk me through your journey to how you opened it up? How did you get started in the side hustle game? Because I know you've been an academic professor. You've got this understanding of the academic part with the PhD. You've also worked at the bedside. You told me just before, you did a per diem shift, locums, or I think you said travel nursing assignment. And so you've been working bedside. And so tell me about how you've kind of done this gradual shift to entrepreneurism.
Okay. So this is a great question, by the way. A couple things. I chose nursing because I loved the fact that I would not be stuck. Like I knew my person. I knew that I get bored easily, right? So I wanted the option to be able to do different things. But when I went to nursing school, everybody told me I needed to go to the bedside. I knew I didn't want to go to the bedside, but I did it anyway. And I tried to be a little defiant by going to critical care instead of going to med surg, right? Yeah. I still was miserable. Okay. Yeah. But I was working for an organization, a governmental organization, the largest one in the United States at the bedside. And I was miserable. And so after 3 years, I resigned with no plan. That was my first introduction to the power of belief, manifesting the life you want, and really, really trusting in your higher power. Mine is God. So I'm a believer. So God, trusting in him that he was going to take care of me. And so that was my first introduction, believe it or not, to entrepreneurship. Because at that time when I left, I was like, all right, first of all,
it's about to get real. It's about to get real.
And I was making, this was back, in 2000. Let's see, that was 2008 I graduated. So it was 2011. So I was making really good money back then. I was almost at six figures. Mind you, I'm in LA. So I was almost at six figures just doing my regular shifts. And this, organization paid really well. So I started just dibbling dabbling, like it was adjunct at a university. And this was before I became a full-time faculty. So I was just adjunct doing clinicals. Then I'd do like registry here and there. I just was flirting. I worked for a drip company that was way back then, IV hydration, just to see what it was about. Yeah. I did home health, figured out that only paid me about $10 an hour because I didn't know how to do the ACEs, which is the charting. So I flirted with so many different things, and I gave myself permission to check off my list. Nope, that didn't work. And on the journey, I ended up applying and got on full-time as faculty. And I was like, whoa, we only have to work 19 hours and we're considered full-time? Yeah, 18 hours full time. I was like, oh my gosh. So from there, I started working. I worked at UCLA per diem, just 4 days a month. So I kept that, and that's an amazing organization. I worked for them for I think 8 years, just per diem. And so at that time, I started investing in myself. I became house soup. I did that part time also.
House soup? What is that?
House nursing supervisor.
Oh, okay.
I did that for 5 years. Loved it. But it came to a point where I wasn't being challenged anymore. It was kind of like the easy job, because I could just go there and it wasn't much to do until when stuff went crazy. Of course, there was plenty, but when it's downtime. So I just decided it was time. I felt like I was a micro entrepreneur already because I was juggling full-time over here, part-time over here, per diem here, yes. But it was even those still had a ceiling because I falsely put in my mind that, because I could schedule my 2 days for the part-time and I, had only my classes on this day and I could schedule myself at UCLA that, I had control. I didn't. Because if anything happened or if one of my kids were sick and I needed to call out, I was already on the schedule, So I started to realize it was a pseudo sense of security, that I was really lying to myself. And so that led to me investing in myself, personal development. I'm a firm believer in it. I still do it after all these years. And that led me into starting my permanent makeup business. Now, I noticed you said people were saying okay, it's time and I want to start small. I didn't start small and I didn't have anyone to tell me otherwise, but that's what I teach. So the people who come to me, they have to be willing to start small. I almost lost everything trying to go too big because I had no one to tell me otherwise. So for me, I teach start small, do it on the side, scale and grow, go per diem, then eventually transition away when your side business starts making enough money to sustain you. That's my approach.
Yeah. Yeah. So if you could go back, you would tell yourself okay, hold on. Like keep a per diem going while you got this going. Just don't completely.
So I not just because I didn't pull away until it was time, but I would
Okay.
have told myself, don't get a 2,000 square foot location and have a huge overhead. It's not necessary. That's what I would have told myself. And so
Gotcha.
I really stayed working longer than I would have if I had just a small suite,
Slowly
and
grew.
then gradually scale, because there is a learning curve in entrepreneurship, just period. So as much as we think we know, and we could pay and invest in all these different, coaches and business mentors and business strategists, until you're in it, you really don't know. And so you can learn and prepare for the common pitfalls and mistakes, and you can do that, which is good. But it's not until you're in it and you're like, oh my gosh. So you have to deal with that, and then you'll be ready. So that's
because I mean, it's true. Even whenever you're working as a new nurse on the floor, you have to, like, even though like you have a preceptor that's there with you, like it's not to that day that you are like, I love that show, Naked and Afraid. Like you are on your own, naked and afraid, that you like, wait, it's all on me. Yes, exactly. It gets real. So I think that's a perfect way to describe exactly what you're talking about. Like, so you naked and afraid, you don't know.
Even in my coaching, all I am doing, because the content is there, like I have the course, all that is there, but pretty much what I'm doing is preparing them for that time mentally. Like, what are you going to do when, that's the best preparation. It's like if you want to relate it to nursing, it's great when all your patients are fine, but what about when everybody's cracked? That's when the what hits the fan, and you really can tell if you're prepared or not. So what about when you don't have the money to pay your lease? Or what about when clients just start canceling, or something happens, COVID shuts you down? I need you to be ready for that. You can always be ready for the good times. That doesn't take much preparation, So yeah.
That is so good. So one of the things I was wondering about as you were talking, and it just kind of came to my mind, was, okay, so when you've done all these different jobs, how did you figure out aesthetics? Because you've done so many different things that were actually quite separate from aesthetics. So how did you end up how did that become your niche? How did you end up choosing that?
Okay. First thing I want your listeners to know is it all starts with you. And the reason you either don't know what you're supposed to do or haven't taken the step you need to take is because you need more work on you. That's just the flat out answer to that. Now, once I started doing the personal work, that's when everything started to be revealed to me. And I will tell you an example, and I always tell this example too as well. When I knew that I was not very approachable, and I was not one to like talk to people I didn't know. Like I was very guarded just before my upbringing and things I had been through in my life. And so it wasn't until I started realizing, like, if you don't step out of your comfort zone and you don't start getting in rooms and getting to know people, you're going to stay in this exact situation you're in. And it wasn't a bad situation. I was making over 6 figures, but I wasn't happy with it. And I knew the change had to be within. So that's when I got my first life coach. And I started to step out and just ask people questions and just talk to people. And that kind of, honestly, it led me to my first business, which was the permanent makeup business. A lady I was working out with I really don't talk to people at all. And I was in my process of working on myself. And so she mentioned that she was in business. And I asked her, like, I waited a whole hour to ask this lady. I had been thinking about the whole hour because I was so, like I said, it was outside of my comfort zone. So finally, at the end of our workout, it was a weightlifting class, and I asked her, I was like, you said you're in business? What's your business? And she just took me under her wing. She's like, you should do permanent makeup. And I had never heard of it. I started researching it, and she had a space, which was the 2,000 square foot location. She's like, you can rent this. Don't worry about, the fact that you haven't been in business. You're a nurse. I'm willing to help you. And the rest was history. Now, I had my permanent makeup business. Things were going great. One of the doctors at the hospital I was working at is House Soup. He's like, you know what? I love your work ethic. You're always positive. This is again, working on myself. You're always positive. Like, I love the things that you're doing. Like, when you're here, it's great. I see you're in business. How can I invest with you? He invested in the business. He became my medical director, and the rest was history. And it all started with me working on me. And that's what I want your listeners to take away from that message.
Wow.
Yeah.
So by meeting this one lady, she kind of showed you the ropes of how to do the permanent makeup. And then as you're just like,
yeah, she was a retailer for clothes. She just had the location, but she was like, you know what? I heard of this. Go look it up. And I looked it up and I was like, oh my God, this is great. Like I liked doing brows. I don't wear makeup, but I always liked brows. And so it was kind of perfect for me. And after she told me, I looked it up, I was doing my research, and then I just found somebody who would train me, and I paid for training. And the rest, I just started everything that I had in me that I knew was blocking me. I started to unload and do the opposite and really step into my power. And that is how I got to aesthetics. It wasn't ever the plan. My prayer has started to become just, God, show me. I don't even know what that looks like. But in the process, I was working on me, and I knew that the path would be revealed because I was working on me. I was the problem.
Oh. So I just did an episode with Tiff Gibson, and she talked a lot about emotional intelligence and working through your issues, and that entrepreneurship is not going to fix your life. Like, it's just not, because wherever you go, there you are. My dad always says that, and he's always taught me that. Like, Sandra, your problems are going to follow you. Like, you can change settings, but there's always you as the common denominator, right? And so I love what you're saying. How did you start that work? Because again, I feel like now I've had two episodes, two entrepreneurs say the exact same thing of like, wherever you go, there you are. So you need to really figure out what's holding you back. I guess my first question is, why do you think, what was some of the beliefs that you had inside of you that were holding you back, and that you had to just go like, this is a lie. Like, I'm deconstructing this lie and I'm going to live in truth. What was one of them? I'm just curious to hear if you don't mind sharing. And then how did you do that work?
Yeah, no new friends was a big one for me.
No what?
And no new friends.
Oh, no new friends. I thought you said nude at first. I was like, yeah, I don't think I want new friends either.
No new friends was my circle was very tight. I had my same friends from high school. We didn't let people in. If a new girl came, we did not like her automatically just because she was new, And what happened was, and I started to unpack this probably about 8 to 10 years ago, when I knew this wasn't it. Like, I had reached the point where I'm from the inner city of LA, so I'm from South Central, and I had reached a point where people who I had grown up with in my family, they thought I was living the life, but yet I was miserable. I was miserable because I didn't feel like I was bringing in money that people would think was good, but I didn't feel like I was living to the fullest of my potential as far as like what I had inside of me, right? I wasn't able to really get that out as an employee. Limited, right? The things I post, some of it I wouldn't have been able to post if anybody had paid me hourly, right? I would have been limited. Now I can say whatever I want. You don't like it, too bad. Nobody owns me, right? So in that process, I started to get really resentful, and I was like, I got to do something about this. And I knew that was one of the problems I had. I knew it because I started to, in the process of me realizing that I had to change, I started to listen to YouTube channels, like a lot. I stopped listening to the radio. I only listened to YouTube and podcasts, and all of them was motivational empowerment. Les Brown, Tony Robbins, Dean Graziosi, E.T. the Hip Hop Preacher. Like, I just kept listening. That's all I heard. And so over probably a process of maybe 6 months, there were common themes I could extrapolate. Your circle. Is your circle a circle or a cage? Okay. And I started to realize that I wanted so much more. And I would talk to my friends about like, I could see their value. Like, I'd be like, oh my God, you're so good at this. You should do this, or you're so good at that. Or like, let's go on a retreat. Let's go on a, conference. Nobody wanted to do. And so I started to feel suffocated. Like, first of all, like I was trying to force them to do something they didn't want to do. Not everybody wants to do what you want to do. Right. And I had to be okay with that. And I remember the day was probably about 6 years ago after, my journey began, and I had already had my therapist and I had already had a life coach. I sat next to my husband and I told him one night, I said, you know what? I'm going to have to get some new people around in my circle. And he's like, what does that mean? I was like, I'm going to have to step outside. Like, I can't force them, and they don't want to. They shouldn't have, like, if they're happy with their life, they should be, And so it was the very first time I was in a Facebook group, and then a young lady I had posted. Oh my God, I thought that was the world. Like I literally posted on this Facebook group and I thought I had done the world. I was like, oh my God, I actually put up a post on this Facebook group. And so one person responded and she sent me a DM. She was like, are you in LA? I'm like, yeah. She's like, let's link up for lunch. And I was like, what? You want to meet up? And I'm like, I told my husband, I wonder if she gay. And then he's like, why? And I was like, I don't know. Do girls do this? Like just, and she was the sweetest, the best breath of fresh air. And, you know, it just transformed my whole outlook. I don't know why I thought the way I thought, but it was what I thought. And she changed all of that in one lunch. And after that, I was just open to meeting people and it has transformed my life. Like I have, you know, I don't know if you know this, but I have the Nurse Boss Mob, which is a community of over 100 nurses who are aspiring or current entrepreneur. I love it. Okay. My inner circle nurses, like entrepreneurs, like, yeah, that was my biggest. And just imagine that one idea was holding me back from all of this.
Yes. You know, I told my husband this similar situation because again, with my job going part-time and all the different things, because I began to feel that same feeling of like, why am I being limited? I totally feel like there's so much more I could do. And I started the podcast and I looked at him a couple of days ago and I was like, I would have never met these people that I'm talking to and the things that I did if I didn't just go to heck with it all. I'm just gonna start this up. I don't know who's gonna come. I don't know who's gonna listen, but I'm just gonna do this thing. And I have met the most incredible people because again, I'm talking to strangers every day. Like this is what I do with my podcast. I've never met these people. And so it's just incredible that like once you get outside of these self-limiting beliefs that you have, these things that you're holding yourself back from, that you will step into something and you're like, why was I so afraid? What was I so afraid of? This is incredible. And again, it's vulnerable. You set yourself open to like seeing things that may or may not be positive. Like I've had guests that I was like, that was not a positive interaction. But at the same time, there's been so much positive that it's just like, oh man, just go for it. So I love that. That is such great advice.
Yeah, it's true.
And so one of the things that I was, again, wondering as you were speaking as well is, you know, there's this moment where you went from side hustle. Well, I guess you told me you kind of jumped all in. You didn't really do the side hustle thing. You just completely jumped in for 3 years, right?
I was working as part-time house soup 2 days a week. I was working as faculty full-time. I also was working 4 days a month at UCLA, and I was driving to San Diego on Thursdays for my PhD. So I was doing it on the side.
Yes. And then you were doing your makeup business on the side.
Permanent makeup on the side. I just had a big location, but I was doing it on the side. Yeah.
I see. Okay. So then at what point did you know financially, mentally, it was time to let go in March of 2021 when you were like, let's go. I'm letting it all go. I'm 100% entrepreneur. How did you get to that spot?
So in March of 2020 was when COVID hit. And I'm in the state of California. California is the very first state to close down.
Yeah.
And so elective treatments, nobody cared. So I had to close my doors. And from March, well, the end of March it was, from March to August, it was like sort of they gave us a little room in August, but I was closed for the most part. A couple things happened during that time. I realized that my stay now, mind you, I was still doing adjunct, by the way. I had already transitioned to adjunct. So I was starting my segue to transition as a full-time entrepreneur before COVID happened. So I had already relinquished, I was lead faculty. I gave that up. I was just doing adjunct. So I was able to still do my adjunct even when doors were closed. In about August, I said, okay, I've been here at my location 2 years. My lease was about to be up. And I was like, it's time. I've outgrown this. And so there was COVID that hit, you know, just things getting into perspective. I had wrote my ebook already. So people were purchasing my ebook. It was great. And so then I was like, okay, it's time for me to transition. Now, in that process, what was the second one that hit? The second variant hit.
Oh yeah. Oh, Delta.
Delta hit.
Yeah.
About October, November. Bam, I was closed again. And I had just signed a 5-year lease for my new location, which was nicer, larger, very close to my house. And so I was like, well, I had never traveled before, but there was an opportunity to pick up a travel assignment in December. So I did that for 8 weeks. But it was in that moment where I realized I'm done. This is it. Like, I'm not going back to the bedside at all after my travel assignment. I'm about to give it everything. It was the experience that I experienced. Too much death, too much out of my 15 years. Like I said on one of my reels, like I had more people die on me in 8 weeks than 14 years. And I still have PTSD
from
COVID.
it.
Yeah. And I still have PTSD from it. And it was, being there with those nurses. Because prior to that assignment, I hadn't worked since July on the bedside at all. And so when I went back, I felt like I was in a war zone. I did not recognize, although I was in a different hospital because I was a travel assignment, but it was like I didn't recognize it anymore. The nurses just were so tired. And, I was like, okay, God, this is why you brought me here, so we could go ahead and put the nail in the coffin. So I did my 8 weeks and I have never been back since. So it was already happening. Like I was transitioning, but it was in that moment I was like, I'm done.
Yeah. Your mind was like, we're done.
Yeah. I'm done with all of it though. Like I gave up. That's when I resigned from faculty officially. Like I was still doing adjunct initially. So still kind of with one little pinky toe in. I was like, I'm done. I'm done with it all.
Wow. And so since that moment, what have you noticed has changed inside of you?
My life has changed. I always, I was a teenage mom. So my daughter is 25. And so my oldest.
Do not look like you were 20.
My oldest is 25. My youngest is 5. She'll be 6. And then I have a 15-year-old. They're all 10 years apart, girl, long story. But the point of the matter is they just being home, being able to take my kids to school. I really was not able to do that. And just being able to set my own time. And that gives me more time to think, giving me more time to study, to read, to be better for my clients, So it's been great. And my me has almost quadrupled this year. Last year, it was already really good, but it's almost quadrupled this year. So between the coaching and the aesthetics practice, and it really gave me, I realized that, even though I was becoming an entrepreneur and I started to really realize that I no longer wanted to expand time, I also started to realize through the coaching aspect of my business that I didn't want to have to be there to make money. I want to be able to make money wherever I am. I don't care if I'm on the other side of the world. I don't care if we're in Iceland. I don't care where we are. I want to be able to bring in money, and I want it to be the same amount or more. So I spent a lot of time establishing myself as an expert in the industry and an authority, and that has helped dramatically. And it's actually doing what I love, which is like reading, studying, just thinking things through. I get paid to do that. Talking, I get paid to do that. I used to get teased because I talk so much.
So when you say you're reading and learning, you're reading and learning about how to be a better business owner, how to be a better aesthetic provider, how to do different skills, taking training, investing in yourself so that you can pull yourself ahead of the pack and say, I have a level of expertise. It's not just my degrees that I am qualified. I'm also highly competent and highly specialized in these areas. And I will show that in the care that you get from me. So people are willing to pay for that, right? People are willing to pay more for that.
Yes. And this is not to be snobby or anything, but, there are a lot of coaches out here, right? Some of them, I am able to fuse the two. Like I have a solid educational background, right? From highly accredited institutions. And then I also have street credit on the social media street. And I feel like that makes me more marketable. And then I read. So like any book you tell me, I've read it already. I've studied it. I've dissected it. So I am able to fuse those together, which is a unusual creature, right? Because either you're this or you're that in most cases, but to be both, it just changes who. So I can relate to so many people that other people can't relate to, and that goes on either level.
Yeah. And now that you've taken down the walls of no new friends, now you can step into those relationships and share who you are with a level of vulnerability and freedom that you were not doing before. So it's almost like you're allowing the world to enjoy who you are.
My authentic self.
Your authentic self.
Yes, which is a very, very good point because, especially being in corporate, I started to really sink into a depression because I had started to kind of lose sight of who I was. In my mind, I thought I was going to go up the corporate ladder and end up as CNO. And like, I was going to play their game until I got in there. Then I was going to let other people in. That was my plan. But I got played because in the process of playing their game, I played myself because I started to lose my identity in that process. And so through therapy and, you know, through just life, I can reflect back on that and like, wow, like, you know, now I'm in a place where I make so much more. I'm not dedicated to anybody's clock but my own, and I'm me. Like, what you see is what you get. The imperfect me, the, you know, girl from the hood me. If I need to pull out my credentials, I can me, but I don't really do that anyway because that doesn't define me. You know, yeah, you're right though.
I love that. And I love that you are able to be, again, because one of the things I always talk about on my podcast is just realizing you're the only you. You're the only Dr. Jones that's just like you. And so I really want more nurses to embrace the fact that like you were made for something special. There's something only you can do that no one else can. And to live your whole life, never stepping and moving into that purpose. Man, you don't want to live your life with regret. So just try it. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But at least you don't look back and go, dang it, I wish I would have given that a shot. It's too late. Yeah. It's never too late. But start today. Plant the seeds today. That's what I always say.
I love that you say that because one thing I say to my clients all the time is like, once you realize you're the secret sauce, you're not worried about nothing else. A lot of times I'll get clients, but what if somebody steal my idea? Nobody can, they can steal the concept of your idea, but you come along with that idea. And so you're the secret sauce. And so once you free yourself of all that and focus on the people who you can help, and you're going to be unstoppable because
that's so good. That's so good. So I wanted to ask you this question, and I know I'm completely throwing all these at you, but I really think you're going to be able to knock this out.
I love it.
I want to know what aspect of business, because we learned so many skills in nursing, and I think a lot of them are translatable, you know, like delegation, implementation, interventions, we'll assess and monitor. I mean, that's a business, right? All you do is assess and monitor. That's not working. Got to switch it up. Like we do all that, right? We learn all that stuff in nursing school. So like, what would you like, again, explain that, like what do you find that has been a nursing skill that has helped translate the business world to you, that you've been like, man, this has been really, really helpful? And then one thing, and this will be kind of my you know, my little caveat, that has been difficult and challenging for you to master, that you really had to work hard on. So one thing that your nursing skills have really helped you with, and one thing you're like, I had no idea. I just had to just go to the Better Biz Bureau, get someone to help me. Like, what is that kind of that dichotomy in your business journey?
Okay, I'll give you two just because I'm in aesthetics. And so one can apply no matter if you are starting a t-shirt business or if you're starting an aesthetic business, which is AdPie. It's true. Assess, diagnose. You're planning, you're implementing, you're evaluating. This is what you do in your business. Okay, here's a problem. Assess, right? What is the problem? Diagnose. What am I going to do about the problem? Plan. Okay, then do the thing. Evaluate. Did it work? Yes, no, go back. That's it. And that's in every business. It doesn't have to be aesthetics. It could be, like I said, t-shirt business, home health business, whatever. You will have problems every single day, whether they're smaller or larger, and you can literally use that AdPie. Now, the second thing is your skills. So we as nurses have, especially if we've worked at the bedside, we have impeccable, you know, scientifically based skills that we can leverage in like our aesthetic practice. Now, and it also prepares us for like that customer service aspect because we want to make sure we treat our patients. Yes, it's a cash paying business, and yes, it's elective, and yes, most people are healthy and all that, but you still got to treat them well, right? So all of that helps so much in business, okay, that you're taking over. The challenge comes in, which is the next part of your question, is having the confidence enough to believe that we are capable of doing it. We don't have the ability to go to that seasoned nurse and say, hey, what would you do? This patient such and such, what would you do about that? Like, what do you think? You know, and then you guys come up together and kind of talk about it and then be like, right, yeah, I think I'm going to go with that. You know how and then you may be able to ask a couple of nurses, like, because it's never really black and white. As much as they try to make it standardized, we know nursing is not black and white. This patient is doing fine with a 98 over 60, and the next patient, 98 over 60, can't barely stand up. You know what I'm saying? And is dizzy. So it just depends. And so you don't have that. So you do have to have a level of confidence as an entrepreneur because you have to make the decisions. Now, the beauty in it is that I'm not in the hospital. My patients are healthy. And so nobody's going to die on me unless they have an allergic reaction, which I have still yet to see the research that anyone has died from an allergic reaction, but it's still a possibility, right? We just never know. But at the same time, because generally speaking, your clients are generally healthy and you have an ability to say, no, I don't want to take this patient. I don't feel comfortable with taking you. You look horrible. Go to the doctor. I'm not finna give you any IV hydration. Go to your primary medical doctor, So you have the ability to do that. It's just really being able to have the confidence, right? That I think comes with experience, that you know what you're doing. And then in the times that you don't, having a connection or a resource or someone who you can, contact. Like I have a network of aesthetic nurses that I can call, like, hey, what do you think about this? Like this client, such and such, so being able to establish that network as well to help you in those times where you're like unsure if you should treat them with this or, whatever. So yeah, but
they're really good. Yeah, I think that's gonna be very helpful for sure. And okay, I always like to ask this question, and I always ask people that if you could go back to Dr. Jones before she was Dr. Jones. She's a single mom. I think you said you're a teenage mom. Were you single? I don't know if you were single or not.
Teenage mom. Single teenage mom.
Single teenage mom, and you're like struggling. You're getting going. You're going to school. You're starting to kind of figure this out. And I know you have a bachelor's degree in public health, and so you've just been like working. And you can go back to tell her something that you would tell her. Don't you dare forget this. This is your lifeline. You hold on to this, girl. You ride that wave all the way through. What would you tell her?
Start. Don't wait and try to appease everyone else. Not my mom, not my nobody, not my grandmother, not my friends. If it's something that you are called to do, most likely, and depending on your belief, it's a higher power that's calling you to do that. Do it. You can learn as you go. I promise you, you can learn as you go. And so I wish that I would not, because see, in the process of me like working all those jobs, and it was just me teeter-tottering. Like, I knew I should have been an entrepreneur a long time ago. I was afraid. And I had to unpack all of the money don't grow on trees, like all of these limiting beliefs that was given to me. Thank you, mom and dad. You need benefits, and the only way you can get them is working for someone, which is not true. So all of those things I had to unpack. And I wish I just would have had enough faith to know that I could figure it out.
That's the word that kept. That's the word that I was going to throw in. If you didn't throw it in, is the faith part, right? Because it's so interesting. It's faith is the evidence or believing what you cannot see. Right. So like, even though you can't see it, I'm butchering that scripture. So God forgive me. But like,
it's the belief. Wait, oh God, now I can't say it. And things that's unseen.
The unseen. Yes.
Of the unseen.
And so, yes, it's the belief. It's a good thing he's got it. Praise the Lord for grace. But you get the point, right? It's the trusting in the things that you can't see. It's the evidence
of things that you cannot see. That's faith.
Exactly. That's faith. Yeah. And so a lot of people say that they have faith. And then when it comes to being tested, you're like, yeah, I got faith, but like, I'll make sure I'm gonna keep this little per diem thing over here because I don't really know if I could, you say these things, right? And so that has been something that has been real challenging and convicting to me just to even hear you say, because again, like there's different elements of my life that I'm just like, no, I want to keep that stuff. Like that stuff is good to have in my little pocket. So I make sure. And again, that's what we're saying. Don't just completely set yourself free, but at the same time, take those steps in faith to go, I'm going to let this go. I think I'm ready. I'm ready to go ahead and move it forward. And that moving forward, that faith act, I really do. I think we look back on those moments, and I feel like every single story has been an inspiring journey of like, and I just fell. I just like trust falled, and I didn't hit the ground. Like I was okay. And so
and people have to understand there's a couple things of tools that I have, and I call it my toolkit as an entrepreneur. One is if it doesn't scare me, then I'm not doing something right. I should be scared. And I should be scared often when it comes to making decisions that could get me to the next level. That's one thing. The second thing is 100% of the time that I have tried things, whether they went the way I wanted to go or the opposite way, I have learned and I have become better as an entrepreneur. So I always look forward to that. I don't know if it's going to go the way I want it. Either way, I'm going to be better as an entrepreneur. That's the second thing. And the third thing is I have to be willing to let go of my old self, because if I was capable of getting me there, I would be there already. And so a lot of people holding on to their old self, and your old self is not going to get you there.
Yes, that is so good. Oh my gosh, girl, you got to write that down. You got to trademark that. That is good. Because if you were, you would be there. So you've got to figure out what about you is holding you back and to drop that. It's whatever that is, can't do that no more.
It's like you got to choose. Do you want the person you are now, or do you want the goals that you have set for yourself? You can't have both. They don't exist
so
in the same
good.
space.
Okay, I found the verse. Now, faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. Girl, we got to quote it right here. We got to get it right here on the Dr. Nurse podcast now. So that was actually my last question. So I'm going to do rapid fire, and I don't think we could ever end on anything better than scripture. So Hebrews 11:1, guys, for those who want to look it up, that is what we are quoting, and that is what we hold on to. And again, that is just truth, right? Like I am so about talking about truth, because the world needs more of it. And I don't need to give you my opinion. Like my opinion, it's okay. But like the Bible is true. And so you can just take it up with the big man. You don't like it. And so again, just moving in that faith is something that I want to encourage more nurses to do. And if you don't have our common faith, that's okay. Whatever that is, whatever it is that you put your heart into, I believe that there are rules that govern this world. They are set rules. You plant a seed, an orange seed. It takes 6 months to get an orange tree. You have a baby. It takes 9 months to grow a baby. There are just rules that the world lives by, that the universe is governed by. So even if you're like, I don't believe in that, okay, that's okay. I mean, we love you. We're glad you're here. But I'm going to tell you something. These rules, they exist. So just trust in them. And then again, whatever that looks like as far as you working out your faith, then we're here. We're just glad you're here.
To the principles if you don't have the faith. You need to anchor to something.
Yes, that's it. Perfectly said. Anchor to the principles if you don't have the faith. That's perfect. Well said. Oh, Dr. Jones, just spitting truth. Last part of the interview is the rapid fire questions. Are you ready?
Yes, I'm ready.
Okay. Oh, I want to know this. What was your very first job ever?
My C's Candy.
What?
And I still learned from C's Candies. Yes, I worked at C's Candies in high school, and I learned customer service that I still use.
Oh, that's awesome. So you're going to give a book to somebody. What book is it?
It depends on where they are in their entrepreneur journey. If they're very new, like just want to do it and the seed is there, but they haven't actually cultivated it yet, read Rachel Rogers' We Should All Be Millionaires.
Oh, I've heard that book. I need to read it. That's
the like, here's your permission, sis, go get what's yours. That's what that book is about.
And so I want to know this because you're an avid reader.
Yeah.
What's your favorite subject to read?
I like to read entrepreneurship right now. And right now I'm at the part where it's marketing and branding. So the books I'm reading right now is Alex Hermosi is like my favorite person right now because he is big on offers and he just has this amazing mind and ability to like unpack like branding and marketing and like what he could have did differently. He's very young. He's only in his 30s. So I'm reading his book, 100 Million Offers, and I'm actually applying it to my offers. And I'm also reading Dan Kennedy, his marketing, No BS marketing book, which is really good.
Oh my God. I feel like I just want to like hang around you all the time. I just want to know what you're doing. Like, tell me what you're doing. Can I come with you? That's how I feel. You're just so inspiring. Thank you so much for sharing everything.
Yeah, absolutely. And one last book, like, The Richest Man in Babylon is another amazing one.
That book is fantastic. I have read that book. It's life-changing.
Yeah, it's life change. You guys, I could go on and listen. Here's the thing. I'm gonna tell this to your readers. Another gem I'm about to drop on y'all. Don't use the excuse that you don't have the money, because Audible is $14 a month and you can get 5 credits and you can listen to Audible books. You can purchase books. We have to change the narrative that we don't have the money and start to say and be honest with ourselves and say that it's not a priority. Only you determine what's the priority for you.
Yes.
Seriously, when
I'm
I
even
shifted my priorities, my life and my bank account shifted in a positive, of course.
Yes. I'm even going to drop a bigger gem. Not even really bigger, cheaper. Libby. The app Libby is a free app from the library. It is the library. Audiobooks you can rent from the library for free. I will check that before I go and get a book on Audible, because I'm like, wait, is it free? And you rent a book, you can have it for 7 days. And it's a little stressful because you have to make sure you finish it in 7 days. I like Audible because I can kind of like, when I'm walking my toddler, I can like play it and, you know, different things like that. But that's even less of an excuse. The book is free on Audible. I mean, I'm sorry, on Libby. So all you need is a library card. You type your library card into the app. It connects you with whatever library is nearest to you, and you get their whole inventory.
I love it.
Yeah.
I've never heard of Libby. I like that.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
But, you know, you can go on YouTube. I started off just listening to YouTube, and that's free too. Like, first of all, let's just stop making excuses. Let's start there. Because even $14, most of your followers are nurses. You guys, come on. Come on.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, that's so good. Thank you for your time today. Thank you for your energy. Thank you for your knowledge.
Thank you so much. Let me see. Is it Pagenta? Dr. Pagenta, right?
It's Pagenta. Yeah. That's good. Most people don't get it on the first try. They're like, Pagenta. You know, it's so funny. I was prior to being Pagenta, and I couldn't wait to like, because they're like, prior, how you spell that? And I'm like, oh God, I can't wait to marry somebody and like change my, and then I got like a even more difficult last bit. Dr. Jones, tell my listeners how they can find you.
Okay. You can find me. My main source of finding me is on Instagram. That's my jam. I'm Sidepreneur, SIDEPRENEUR_nurse. And you can also find me on YouTube as Sidepreneur_RN. Those are the primary ways to reach me. I do have a website, drkiiyonnajones.com as well.
Perfect. And I'll put all that in the show notes, guys. You can check her out, link to her, all her social media sites. And you guys can, again, like I said, see what she's offering, see if that's something you're interested in. And guys, you've seen her mind. You see how she works. You see what she's about. So yeah, sign up if you're like, man, I want to take the plunge, but I need a little bit of help. So yes. All righty. Thanks for coming on.
Bye, everybody.
Anyway, have a wonderful afternoon. Thank you. I'm going to hit.
Thank you so much for having me.